Hi, I'm Chen Youjing. You can call me Eugene. Let me introduce myself. My mother is an Indonesian Chinese, and my late father was a veteran of the Chinese Civil War. But our family did not live in a military dependence village, 眷村. My father works in the night market where everyone spoke Minnan, but my father's mother tongue was Fuzhou. He sold Fuzhou food there, such as 激光 bombs, twins, 双胞胎. He gave birth to me when he was almost 60 years old. My family lives in Sanchong, New Taipei City. The impression of Sanchong is that it is not a safe and security city. On PTT, the Taiwanese version of Reddit, people call it 新北高谭市, the new Taipei Gotham City. If I lied to my high school classmates that I took a gangster-style Cadillac to school, they would believe me. The boundary between New Taipei City and Taipei, the capital city, is partially defined by rivers, and there are 9 bridges in Sanchong. Therefore, in the real world, I did not take a Cadillac, but a bus to cross bridge to school. All these contradictions, including languages, cultures, and most of my classmates had home in the countryside to go back during summer vacations, but I didn't. All of this have made me feel that crossing is a daily practice, nothing special. If I accidentally reveal the differences, I even risk putting myself in a vulnerable position. So I put differences into fiction so these details could become something valuable. 2018 is the year that Taiwan became an aging society, with more than 14% of the population being over 65 years old. I started this story in 2014, and at that moment, I didn't know that same-sex marriage would be legalized in 2019. As for the Dignity of Death Act, 尊严死法案, it is not legal yet. This novel, Message from Another World, is divided into 4 chapters, namely spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each chapter has a single narrator. It intends to explore the issues of over-medication and death. What is death and what is not death? The title of the chapter of spring is 老人去死, which has 2 meanings. One is to scold old people, go to hell. The other is the main action of this chapter. The old men are literally going to hell. Although what the 2 old men do seems to be an active pursuit of death, they also want to live a life with quality and dignity. They do not want the right of their own death to be held in the hand of others. The chapter of autumn begins with the perspective of a transgender girl. Once I saw a Japanese news story about a young man. He disguised to be a girl and attended a girls' high school. I wrote this story based on this article and created a character called Lily, a name that comes from the novel The Danish Girl. My Lily goes to girls' school and meets another girl who does not want to go to school. The 2 of them run away from home and school. But what should they do when they run out of money? They go to an internet cafe as a shelter and meet a group of old veterans from mainland China. One of the mainlanders is 老头子, the old man. He takes the 2 girls to his place because he lives alone. The relationship between Lily, the young girl, and the old man can be described as each having their own needs. Transactional dating or sugaring sounds like a crime scene because someone are underage and some people trade their bodies for money. But does this being underage mean you can't decide what to do with your own body? Does a marriage also base itself on economics? Being an adolescent or a patient is quite the same thing to me. None of them are allowed to control their own bodies. For me, the relationship between Lily and the old man crosses the generations, even gender. It's a mutual understanding of being on the border margin. Many of my characters are wanderers and homeless people. Why would they want to live in other people's houses? It's because they don't have a home of their own. Many veterans are lonely and they want company. Lily, the young girl, and the old man are just the kind of combination. But do not forget that human life is very fragile, especially for the elderly. The old man dies suddenly, and it becomes Lily's crisis. You have a corpse, relics, and even the whole house. What would you make a person completely disappear from this world? The living has a lot of things to worry about, but for the dead, there could be no better ending than this. The old man died in his own home, peacefully in his sleep. When a person dies at an age old enough, it is considered a happy death, 喜丧. Eligibility is the focus of the chapter of Autumn. If there is a qualification for death, then age and suffering are the most important indicators. You must be old enough and suffering enough to be qualified for a dignified death. Our modern society recognizes death with medical and legal evidence. But I'd like to ask, when do we recognize someone's death? It may be the moment when you can no longer have a certain food made by someone or have someone do a certain thing with you. That's when you really realize that the person is dead. This is where the digital property becomes an important link. This property makes the living feel that the dead are still with them. So, speaking of border, what are your thoughts about border? People often analyze that my works have a borderline quality, though I have never thought about it in this way. But I am concerned with these marginal topics and the communities, such as the homeless, satellite cities, veterans, new immigrants, even elderly women. For me, the borders are an infinitely large field. 跨界通讯 creates a community and a space for these marginal characters. After you die, you may become a ghost, but no one knows how long the ghost will last. The ghost will disappear too. In the end, we still have to face the ending of death and disappearance. But with the internet cafe, 跨界通讯, you know you can trust a group of people to help you take care of your body, your will, and your legacy. This group will help you fulfill your wishes, let you die well, and take care of your family. You will not die alone, and you can properly say goodbye. To the dead, death only means they stop their biological functions. On the contrary, death has various meanings to the living. For example, how the bereaved families of people committing suicide cope with the pressure. They may have to deny and say, my family member did not commit suicide to save the families or their own names. The death of a young person is unqualified, and the death of the middle-aged person is a pity. Death is actually only meaningful to those who are still alive. So I want to write the story from the perspective of the living, how people live. Only when we see the boundary of death and its definition, we can live with more confidence. As a young person, why are you interested in discussing the issues of death and aging? I feel that the oldest I've ever been is when I was 25 years old. I couldn't achieve what I wanted to do, and I graduated from school. So I couldn't say I was still a student, although I found that the actual old people don't think that hard about the definition of being old. They just go through everything and then conclude, this is life. So I think the discussion about being old can open a lot of space. I don't have to find a 100-year-old person to tell people how to eat and behave well to live a long life. On the contrary, when people are young and look at death from a distance, they will have a lot of different ideas. Everyone's being old may be different, and your being old is not the same as mine. If there's no accident, young people will definitely grow old. It is such a certainty that we should seriously discuss the definition of being old. If you die and become a ghost, how will you say goodbye to your family? A message, of course, via iMessage, WhatsApp, or Line. What matters is via a platform we are already familiar with. Conan O'Brien said that in 50 years, most ghosts will residing on the internet, not in hotels or houses. I didn't think that ghosts are more efficient on the internet, but that our real life is already on the internet. Look at ourselves and how much time we spend on social media every day. In the novel, these old people hang out in the internet cafe, chat in chat rooms, and even become ghosts together. So, What chat rooms? When I was a teenage young girl, I hung out in chat rooms a lot. There were chat rooms dedicated to different populations and communities as a virtual space of gathering, such as high school students in northern Taiwan, college students, office workers, and people over 30 years old, blah, blah, blah. In chat rooms, we knew each other's nicknames and accounts. We felt a sense of home and even a sense of identity. You can even define who you were based on which chat room you attended. I went into these chat rooms posing as different characters because I was very curious about my future. I often went to the chat room for people over 30 years old. I would set myself up as a working person, but I did not see that I never became a working person after I was 30. I always listened to people seriously. That's when I realized that I didn't need to make too complicated character settings. I could become an adult by listening and responding seriously because people who went to the chat room just wanted to talk, not listen. On the other hand, the trend of the elderly is obviously slower than in the real world. There must be someone somewhere in the world who's still logging into a chat room. Chat rooms are also a space where fiction can deal with, as it is only text and time. In a chat room, you can also be anonymous. Take a name you like and choose who you want to be. So, in the framework of this novel, there is a chat room. This chat room also becomes a place for the elderly and mainlanders to gather together, as well as a space for young people to live and die. So the last question is 跨界通讯, the internet cafe, a real place? In fact, the internet cafe does exist, but without these characters. The high school I went to was in the executive district of Taipei, near the office of the president, the courthouses, the Ministry of National Defense. And when there was a protest, I had to work through barricades to get to school. After school, I had to take the bus home. There was an internet cafe on the second floor across from the bus stop. I've never been to that cafe, but don't you think it's strange that there is an internet cafe there? Who would have the money and the interest to come downtown to use an internet cafe there? And when internet cafe were not flourishing anymore, the internet cafe was still there. In the fictional cafe, in the novel, the living people provide a service for the dead who are still conscious but cannot move their body freely. So this brings me to think about that. My cat passed away last year, but I've never thought I would receive a card from the vet in January this year. The vet handwriting is quite beautiful. I've never wrote back. The important thing is that the service I imagined exists. Although I have never been to that internet cafe across from my bus stop, I researched several internet cafes. When I was a kid, the popular cafes were places where people connected to play video games and smoked cigarettes. But after a few years, I found that an internet cafe is a good place where business people rest and even homeless people can sleep very well. I went to a Japanese internet cafe. The cafe had a drink bar, showers, sliding doors, basically everything but the lock on the door. No one smoked in the cafe. In Taiwan, 漫画王 Comic King is a popular cafe at Taipei Station, 漫画王 charges about 10 NT dollars an hour or 100 NT dollars for the whole day. You can watch comics, surf the internet, and lie down to sleep. To me, these places are like a paradise in the city, protecting people who have nowhere else to go. I was wondering if border crossing positive or negative. For me, foreign countries and borders exist everywhere, such as restrictions imposed by immigration systems, wars, and their consequences, like what the veterans experience in the book, phone calls with credit card customer services, and the multiple options I have to deal with to order at Subway. While people against such backgrounds are often held in suspension, their self-identification may be flexible, but patience and understanding are also required for them to comprehend foreign countries. Therefore, I would like to ask someone, probably a scholar, does border boundary bring any active meaning for these outcomers who are not used to these regulations and restrictions?